Night shift always felt longer than it should. But for Liam Carter, the halls of Mercy Hill Hospital stretched into something else entirely. A quiet, humming labyrinth of flickering lights and forgotten rooms. His badge still smelled like factory plastic. He'd only been hired 3 weeks ago, but this was the first night he worked alone on the North Wing. And the North Wing was where the old cases were kept. Long-term patients, comatose wards, and the ones who never left. At 1:14 a.m., the elevator doors slid open with a metallic groan. Liam stepped into the dim corridor, the fluorescent lights trembling overhead like they were afraid of the dark. He carried a clipboard under his arm and a thermos of cooling coffee he already regretted bringing. The night nurse on the shift before him had smiled stiffly and said, "Don't worry, North Wing is quiet." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Liam's round was simple enough. Check the machines, update vitals, and record any anomalies. The hallway echoed faintly with the rhythm of heart monitors behind closed ICU glass. He forced himself to breathe evenly, to ignore the feeling that the air was denser here, colder. "Just nerves," he muttered. He walked room to room, trying to look busy, even though every patient lay motionless. Most were seniors, some young, all silent. But as he pushed his cart past room 209, he froze. The overhead temperature screen flickered downward. 74 degree, 69 degree, 63 degree. A blast of cold air swept through the hallway, lifting the edge of his scrub top. He wasn't alone. Footsteps clicked behind him. Slow, steady, unmistakably deliberate. Liam turned. A nurse stood at the far end of the hallway, maybe 20 yards away. A woman in a crisp, old-style uniform, white dress, old cap, outdated badge. The entire outfit looked like something from the 1960s. She was slightly hunched, her posture stiff and unnatural. He couldn't make out her face. Hello?" Liam called out, trying to sound confident. The nurse didn't respond. She only tilted her head, and the temperature dropped again. He blinked, and she vanished, just gone. Not walking away, not turning. One moment she stood there, the next the hallway was empty. A cold tightness wrapped around Liam's throat, the kind that came right before a panic attack. He forced himself to take a long breath. "This hospital is old," he whispered to himself. Probably a reflection on the glass, or a nurse on another shift, maybe. He didn't believe it, but he had to say it. He continued his round, making a conscious effort not to look behind him. At 2:03 a.m., Liam entered room 217. The records called it long-term Alvarez. A man in his 70s lay in the bed, hooked up to machines that beeped dutifully despite the fact his chart indicated zero brain activity for the last 8 months. Liam checked his vitals, made notes, and turned to leave. But the window across the room flashed with movement. The nurse. She was standing outside the glass wall. No, not exactly standing. Her posture was wrong, her limbs too stiff, her head slightly rotated like a broken doll's. But it was her face, or rather, where her face should have been, that froze him in place. There were no eyes, just 2 deep, hollow pits, like empty wells carved into her skull. Darkness swarmed inside those sockets, swallowing the faint hallway light. And even though she had no eyes, Liam felt her staring directly at him. His breathing turned sharp, uncontrollable. The nurse lifted one skeletal finger and pointed at the patient's bed. Liam's body moved before his mind could react. He stepped backward until his shoulder hit the wall. What do you want?" he whispered. She tilted her head in a slow twitching motion, then vanished again. This time, the temperature crashed so sharply the monitors let out a warning beep. Liam stumbled out of the room in sheer terror. By 2:30 a.m., Liam made it to the nurse's station. His co-worker Angela, a seasoned nurse in her 40s, looked up from her paperwork. "You look white as a sheet," she said. "Everything okay?" Liam hesitated. Should he tell her? Would she think he was hallucinating? But the dread sitting in his chest was too heavy to hide. "Angela, did you see anyone down the hallway?" A nurse in white, old-fashioned uniform? Angela's expression darkened. She slowly set down her pen. You saw her? Liam's heart dropped. Who is she? Angela swallowed. There's a story they tell the night shift nurses. I always thought it was just meant to scare new staff. What story? Angela leaned forward, lowering her voice. Mercy Hill had a nurse in the 1960s, Helen Waverly. She worked the night shift just like us. One winter storm, the power went out across half the hospital. They found her the next morning frozen to death in the north wing, still holding a patient's file. And the strange thing is, that patient had already died hours earlier. Helen was checking on dead patients. Liam felt the blood drain from his face. But that's not the part the nurses talk about, Angela continued. They say that after she died, she kept doing her rounds, checking on the ones who are supposed to be gone. And if you see her, if she looks at you with those empty eyes, it means she's added you to her list. That can't be real, Liam whispered, but his voice shook. She can't hurt you, Angela said, though she sounded unconvinced. She only watches. Liam was trembling. Angela? She pointed at one of the rooms. Angela's face twisted with alarm. Which one? Room 217. Angela stood up so suddenly her chair squeaked. That room is supposed to be closed tonight. What? Why? The patient Alvarez. He passed away earlier this evening. Liam went cold. But he was in the bed. The monitors, the staff removed his body at 11 p.m., Angela said. The machines are off. Liam grabbed her arm. I saw him. He was in the bed. The machines were on. Angela shook her head. No, Liam, they weren't. A quiet rhythmic clicking echoed down the hall. Slow, precise, getting closer. The air in the station turned icy. Angela froze. She's here. The hallway lights flickered violently. Liam felt the cold seep into his bones, each breath turning into a cloud. She doesn't hurt people, Angela whispered, but her voice wasn't confident anymore. The clicking grew louder. A shadow stretched across the floor, and then she appeared at the edge of the corridor. The hollow nurse, standing as still as a gravestone, body rigid, uniform ghost white, her face empty except for those cavernous pits where her eyes should have been. Liam grabbed Angela's hand. Don't move. The nurse turned her hollow gaze toward them. The temperature dropped again, 58 to 54 deg, 49 deg. Liam's teeth chattered uncontrollably. Angela whispered, She's searching for someone. The nurse stepped forward. One slow step, then another, but she didn't look at Angela. She looked directly at Liam. The clipboard fell from his hands. Liam backed into the wall as the hollow nurse approached, her movements jerky, unnatural, as if her bones were bending in ways bones shouldn't. Her hollow sockets reflected nothing, just an infinite darkness that seemed to pulse like something alive. She reached out a skeletal hand. No, Angela cried, grabbing Liam's arm. But it was too late. The nurse pressed her cold, bony fingers against Liam's chest, right over his heartbeat. At the exact second she touched him, every monitor in the north wing went flatline. The hallway lights burst into darkness. Liam felt a freezing rush fill his lungs, like winter itself poured inside him. His knees buckled. He collapsed. The last thing he saw was the hollow nurse leaning inches from his face, empty eyes boring into him as if memorizing him. And then she whispered, in a breath colder than death, You're next on my rounds. The lights snapped on. The nurse was gone. Angela knelt beside him, shaking him. Liam, say something. But he couldn't speak. He couldn't breathe. He could only feel that cold touch still pressing against his heart. From that night onward, every shift, every hallway, every reflective surface, Liam saw those hollow sockets watching him, waiting, because once she chooses you, the hollow nurse never stops checking your vitals.